The snow had been falling for 3 days straight. Deep in the northern forest stood an old hunting cabin abandoned decades ago. Hunters avoided it. Campers never stayed near it. The locals simply called it the Silent Cabin. One winter, a group of loggers became stranded during a blizzard. With nowhere else to go, they took shelter inside the cabin. That first night, they heard a whistle. It came from somewhere in the woods. A long, slow whistle. One of the men laughed and said it was probably another lost traveler. The others weren't so sure. The whistle came again, closer, then again, closer still. The strange thing was that whoever was making the sound never seemed to struggle through the deep snow. There were no footsteps, no crunching, nothing, just the whistle. The men locked the door and stayed awake all night. By morning, the snow outside was untouched, no tracks, no signs of anyone. The second night, the whistle returned. This time it was joined by something worse, a voice, a familiar voice. The men heard one of their co-workers calling from outside, "Help me." But the co-worker was sitting right beside them inside the cabin. Everyone heard it. The voice came again, "Please, let me in." The men looked at one another in terror. Outside, something was copying them. Then came scratching on the walls. Slow, deliberate, like claws dragging across wood. The scratching circled the cabin for hours. Nobody dared move. Just before sunrise, it stopped. When daylight arrived, they searched outside. Again, there were no footprints, only long claw marks gouged into the frozen walls. The third night, the temperature dropped even lower. The whistle never came. The scratching never came. The forest was completely silent. That silence frightened them more than anything. Then they heard something walking on the roof. Heavy footsteps. Thud, thud, thud. The steps crossed the entire cabin before stopping directly above them. Everyone held their breath. A few moments later, a voice whispered from the chimney. Not a shout, not a growl, a whisper. It perfectly mimicked one of the men. "I'm hungry." The fireplace suddenly exploded with soot and ash. The men ran outside into the storm. Several made it back to town. One did not. When the snow finally melted months later, searchers found strange tracks deep in the forest. The footprints looked almost human, except they were far too large. And whatever made them had been walking alongside the missing man's tracks for miles. The tracks ended at the edge of a frozen lake. The man's tracks stopped. The other tracks continued and disappeared into the trees. To this day, locals say that if you're alone in the woods during a snowstorm and hear a whistle where nobody should be, don't whistle back, because the Wendigo might be trying to learn your voice.